Welcome to the second of our podcasts on the Fruitful Field consultation process. The consultation began on the 17th of October. It runs right through till the 23rd of December, and you can find out everything you need to know about it at methodist.org.uk/fruitfulfield, where you can also find the full consultation document, if I put my teeth back in. Now, these podcasts will make a lot more sense to people if they've read the consultation document, so we do urge you to go and check out all the detail there. We can't cover it all in these. This is about addressing some of the questions we've already had from people about the proposals in the document. Now, I'm joined by Mark Hammond, who is a Methodist minister and also a member of the Ministries Committee. Mark, how did you find yourself suddenly co-opted onto this new committee that was dealing with such a massive piece of work?
I received an invitation to be on it, and when I actually asked about what it was doing and why the committee had been formed, it was really exciting. I didn't want to pass it up.
Now, the Methodist Conference asked the Ministries Committee, which is essentially a new body, to undertake this massive kind of review of our training and development processes and come up with a way forward. How did the committee approach this as a kind of new piece of work? Where do you start from when you're given something so huge and you've got to report back in a year?
Yeah, we weren't presented with a blank sheet. The current Ministries Committee is building on the foundations of work done by the Shadows Ministries Committee that met for a year before we were formed. And some of the members of that previous committee have joined this new committee. But also, the connectional team, we're doing a lot of the groundwork in terms of fact-finding. So that when we first met jointly with the Shadows Committee, we were presented with facts about the current situation in terms of learning institutions in the Methodist Church. And we went on from there. So it would be wrong to think that we were just starting from zilch and moving on from there.
And so you had a kind of set of information about what the current situation is. What did you identify as the key points for moving forward from that? What did we need to get to? You know,
as the report itself touches on, there were various factors which came to play. The first of all is that in the General Secretary's report at last year's conference agreed that our general direction of travel was that we were going to be seeing ourselves as a discipleship movement shaped for mission. And so we want to shape the way in which we learn within the Methodist Church and equip the Methodist people according to that, to grow disciples and to get involved in the mission of God. Alongside that, the facts that we looked at showed us a couple of things. First of all, that the proportion of the £6.2 million we currently spend every year on our training that actually goes to initial ministry training of deacons and presbyters, is almost, well, it's over £3 million. And it was felt within the committee when we looked at this that that's too great a proportion. We want more of our training to get down to grassroots level. The committee, it's probably worth saying, is made up not just of presbyters, but of deacons, of lay people as well. And the presbyters that are on it, 3 of them, including myself, are circuit ministers. We're involved in the Methodist Church at grassroots level. And the committee really felt it was important that our training had an impact at that level. So, for example, when I'm sat on the committee and we're talking about things, I think about some of the people that I am helping to nurture in discipleship back at home. I think of people like a teenager called Charlotte, who at last night's local preachers meeting in our circuit was given a note to preach. How can we help her to become the best local preacher for her own generation. I think of people like Joyce. Joyce came to faith a few years ago. She's in her 70s. She now hosts one of our home groups at church. How can we help Joyce when she's hosting? I think of the 5 people that are currently training at the church where I'm a minister to be worship leaders. How can we help them to be all that they should be? I think of Greg. Greg is a traffic officer. He came to faith recently. He's a grandfather, and he felt, once he started to hear about what Jesus said disciples should do, he felt a real burden to help with the homeless in Blackpool. How do we help equip Greg? So
we've got kind of 2 layers. We've got where we are and how much we're spending, and
yes.
the various structures that we're dealing with at the moment. And then we've got this vision of helping people like Greg, people who are really feeling a call, but not necessarily to ordain ministry, but in addition to those who...
Absolutely. And the sense was, when you look at what proportion of what we're spending is actually getting down to training those local people, it's not as great as we would want a greater proportion.
So how did the Ministries Committee come to going, okay, here's the situation, there's where we want to be.
Right.
How did you think your way through this pathway, really, to going from where we are to where we'd hope to be? I mean, how did we essentially come up with this document? What were the processes? Was it lots and lots of meetings? Was it conversations in different areas? How do you go about kind of designing something like this?
We start with what we're called to be, the vision of us being a discipleship movement shaped for mission. We then look at the facts, and one of the start facts is that the funding for what we do at the moment is not going to be there beyond the end of 2012, 2013. Effectively, it's going to be halved, the money available. So we then that told us that the status quo, good as it's been, as well as it's served us to this date, cannot continue as it is. Change is inevitable, and we're faced with having to make stark choices. And so, given that stark reality, and given what God has called us to be, we had long conversations about options, about what we could do, and the report itself speaks of the fact that at the extremes of the options, you've got we could go back to where we were in 1850, when we didn't have any learning institutions within Methodism. You know, for the first 120 years of Methodism, we didn't have those things. But we looked at that and we said, well, actually, no, we don't think we're going back to the mid-Victorian age. We looked at whether we should keep everything going for as long as we can, as it is. And we felt that if we did that, we're just dealing with continual round of uncertainty, dealing with, in an ad hoc way, the pain of having to face this institution and that course closing and all the pain that involves. And we felt that was wrong. So we discussed, we prayed, we talked in small groups, in plenary sessions, and eventually there emerged this sense that actually the image of a single hub with dispersed learning in the regions and locally just felt right. And I suppose the consultation document is basically fairly reflecting where the Ministries Committee has got to this date. And we know it doesn't contain a full business plan. It doesn't have an impact assessment on the pastoral result of all this, it is what it is. It's a vision that we're giving in consultation to the Methodist people and saying, here's where we've got to so far. What do you think?
Because some people, we've heard some criticisms that the document's too vague, there's not enough concrete, kind of, this is exactly how it would look, this is exactly how much it would cost, this is where the hub would be. There's none of that in the document. But we've also had people saying, well, actually, it's too detailed, it's too specific. Some people feel like it might be a fait accompli. Where do we stand in this? I mean, it feels like a very tricky line to tread.
From where I'm standing at this stage in the process, if we've got people at both extremes saying we've got it wrong, maybe we're about where we should be at this stage. The reality is, to those who say, actually, we want the business case, we want the timetable, we want it all thought through and the detail, that will flow from whatever results from the consultation. For those who say, I'm concerned about the effect this is going to have on people that I know, people that are involved with the running things as the way that they are, we're concerned for that as well. But that will be addressed when we get to that stage. I think it's easy sometimes when you're outside of being fully involved in a process to assume that more is going on than meets the eye.
Well, because most people are not on the Ministries Committee.
No, exactly.
Most people are not involved in seeing how this is unfolding.
But as a member, as an ordinary circuit minister who is involved in the committee, I can genuinely say that this document fairly reflects where we're up to, and the consultation we're currently going through. That we're so grateful for the people who are getting involved, who are making a response. We genuinely want to hear.
Because we have heard, I mean, we're very nearly out of time, but we must cover this because various people have said it to us. People have said, the consultation has felt rushed, that they felt there's not been enough time. Maybe district synods, for example, autumn synods, were not able to consider this document because the consultation started after those had begun. And so people are saying, well, is this really a genuine consultation? Are we kind of chucking it out there saying, consultation, and then kind of going to carry on with it? What would you say to that?
The reality is that the usual way in which these things have worked in the past is that a finished document very often is presented 6 weeks before the Methodist conference, and that's the first time it meets the light of day. We've produced this consultation document because we realise the substance of what we're dealing with is huge. The ramifications are very great, and we don't want to rush to that final recommendation to conference before going through this consultation period. It is squeezed, it is, but some of the districts like my own, Lancashire, realising that we can't discuss this at Synod because Synod's gone, are having this coming week a separate consultation meeting at which everyone who feels that they want to hear about this, have passionate things to say about it, get that chance. And I'm really grateful for people who have supported those extra meetings to enable that to happen.
And what will happen with people's responses to the consultation? People are sending in, some of them very detailed responses.
Yeah.
What is the Ministries Committee going to do with those?
I think the final date for responses is the 23rd of December.
That's right, yes.
Which means that the members of the Ministries Committee are going to have an interesting Christmas.
Interesting Christmas.
So when I
reading it over the Brussels sprouts.
Exactly. And I think there's something like 11 days or 2 weeks between the end of the consultation period and the Ministries Committee meeting for 24 hours. We will be reading everything that is sent through and praying over it, and then meeting together and saying, what is the Spirit saying to the church?
I'm afraid on that note, we really are going to have to finish. But thank you very much, Mark, for your time. If you're listening or watching, keep your eyes peeled for more of these podcasts in the coming weeks. And more importantly, don't forget you can make your voice heard by contributing to the Fruitful Field consultation online at methodist.org.uk. Oh, I'll put my teeth back in. methodist.org.uk/fruitful field. I'm going to get it tattooed on the inside of my eyelids. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.